All right, we are talking with Mike KENEALLY. He, of course, is the guitarist, writer, producer. You know, from Frank Zappa. We were talking about performing, of course, with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. Please continue.
Oh, I kept reminiscing about the G4 thing, the first one where when Paul Gilbert and Andy Timmons were there. You learn things about these guys that are cool. Like I found out that Andy and Paul shared this obsession that I have with Todd Rundgren, who's a amazing guitarist, singer, songwriter, and so we would stand out in back of the theater area where we were doing the performances and just try to stump each other with Todd Rundgren lyrics. You know, it's like you'd quote one little bit of a Todd Rundgren lyric and see if Paul Gilbert knew the next line, and then see if Andy knew the next line. And of course, you know, we all did because we're hardcore Todd heads. But that's just, you know, it's a fun little personal interaction that maybe some people wouldn't expect, because they just think of these guys as guitar hotshots and not necessarily thinking about how wide ranging everybody's musical taste is, right? You know, we're all into all kinds of different stuff, but those were fun moments to share also.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I know you have a very voluminous body of work yourself. Tell us about the latest. What is the new stuff?
The new album is called "The Thing That Knowledge Can't Eat," and it's my first solo album since the last record that I put out. And I've put out a lot of records.
Sorry, we had a
okay.
Mike, tell us about your latest record.
Okay, the new album, which is the first one in a long time, actually, is the name of the album is "The Thing That Knowledge Can't Eat," and it's the first record I've done in about 6.5 years. And it's been a long time coming. I've done a lot of records, if you include like special editions and limited editions and stuff like that. It's actually over 30 titles. And the last album I put out was in 2016, and I kind of wanted a break from making albums, because I just like produced a big stack of albums at that point, and I thought I would maybe give some people in the world time to catch up with this body of work. So I, went off and started doing other stuff. I got involved playing with Devin Townsend and with the ZAPPA band, which is me with a bunch of other people who had played with Frank Zappa through the years. So I got involved with other projects, but then decided fortuitously, because all of a sudden there was a pandemic and I had all this time, that it was time to put out another solo record. So finally, after a number of years, I've got this new album out, and I'm very, very happy to finally be sharing it with people, because it took a long time to finish.
Yeah, and I know you have Steve Vai on there. Tell about how Steve contributed and who else is playing with you.
I wrote this rock guitar instrumental, kind of almost like classic guitar rock instrumental, called Celery, and I had recorded the basic track for it a number of years ago with Pete Griffin on bass and Nick DiVirgilio on drums, and they killed it. So it was a very strong rock backing track on this thing, and it's just kind of a classic riff type of song. And I was thinking, well, I could play all the guitars on this. Usually on my own albums, I'll play the majority of the solos and stuff. But I really just heard Steve on this thing, and I wanted this album. I didn't necessarily want this album to be just like a guitar statement from me, like this is what I can do on guitar, because I've done that over and over again on my records. So I don't have any problem with handing over the well, not the microphone, but I guess the guitar pick to somebody else. And I just thought Steve is the guy. I really would like to hear what Steve would do on this song. So he took it and ran with it, man. He kills it. He sounds amazing. Excuse me.
And other guests, who else is playing with you on this one?
Well, there's this name might not necessarily mean as much to people as Steve, but it meant a lot to me. There was a band in the 70s called Gentle Giant, who was a progressive rock band that I was in love with, still am in love with. And they did an album called Three Friends, and the drummer on that album was a guy named Malcolm Mortimer. And I had the opportunity to meet Malcolm when I was asked to play at a Gentle Giant fan convention, because I guess I became known as somebody who really likes Gentle Giant. So they invited me to come and play at this convention in Albuquerque about 5-6 years ago, and Malcolm Mortimer was there, and we just got along. We struck up a friendship, and occasionally stayed in touch. And while I was home in lockdown in 2020, working on new music, I had just put together. I'm looking for a way forward, right? I can't tour. Nobody's leaving their house. So I better work on some music. I better get a recording rig together and start making some songs. And I put together this song that I eventually called "The Carousel of Progress," and it's a 7.5 minute. So it's the main sort of epic on the new album. It's the last song on the album. It travels through all these different vibes, sort of the prog epic on the record. And I asked Malcolm if he would play drums on the thing. So I've got Malcolm Mortimer on that song. I've got Eric Slick, who was the drummer in Adrian Belews band for a while, and he's also in a band called Dr. Dog, and he plays on one of the songs. And Pete Griffin and Nick DiVirgilio, like I said, a drummer named Ted Morton from the band Pet Shark plays on the song Lana. And Tobias Ralph plays on the song Big Hit Song. He was the drummer in Adrian's band also, and he also played in a group called 24/7 Spies. And then there's an instrumental called Ack that I have a bunch of members from a Dutch orchestra called the Metropole Orchestra. And we've got a group of 11 players, although the bass player on that song is Brian Beller, who's the bassist in my band Beer for Dolphins, and a lot of people also know him from, he plays with Joe Satriani also, and he has a group called the Aristocrats that he plays with a lot. So it's an interesting collection of folks, and then there's several songs where it's just me playing everything.
Fantastic. And what's the best social media or people can go to find out more about this record, or any live appearances or anything you may do?
Well, you can just go to KENEALLY.com, which we try to keep updated with all the most current information. So if you know how to spell my name, then you just go to KENEALLY.com. But you can also, I have several Facebook accounts, and I've got a personal profile, a fan page, and there's a Mike Keneally group as well on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I don't interact with Instagram as much because I'm annoyed at the fact that you can only really interface with Instagram via the phone, and also that you can't actually include hyperlinks in your posts. So I'm not as active on Instagram. And if anybody is into the platform Patreon, there's you can check out my page there, which is just patreon.com/Mike Keneally, and I'm posting stuff there constantly. There's so much content there, it's ridiculous.